In March of 2021, I had lost my mother to cancer. And when you lose somebody that important to you, you can't help but to grieve. For me in particular, I was just deep down sad. Losing my mother felt like I had lost everything. The years of trying to keep my depression and anxiety to a minimum suddenly bubbled up to the surface and casted me into a sea of melancholy. See, I am the youngest of 9 children, and I lived with my mother my entire life. I respected and admired her. It was like living with your very own idol. Every wisdom she taught me, every hole she prevented me from falling in, every hug she gave me, she was greatly loved and appreciated by me. The only downside I would admit is that I got too used to her being there, taking the lead, pointing me into the right direction, as if I just knew she was going to be there forever. She was more than just a mother. She was my protector, my biggest cheerleader, my rock. She was everything to me. And when you're fortunate enough to have someone so selfless around you on a daily basis, you start to forget you too have wings and that you can fly as well. But when you're too busy constantly allowing someone else to use their wings for you, you begin to lose the mobility in your own. And all too often that happens to people without them even realizing it. You become a stunted adult and maybe even codependent. In short, I was sheltered, but not in the bad way. I'm by no means spoiled. My parents had been preparing their children for the real world ever since we were little. We're all very self-sufficient and hardworking adults. But when you lose someone as important to you as your mother, everything immediately changes. You become even more aware of the fact that you no longer have that parachute there to ease your falls. All your responsibilities fall solely on you. Every choice, every consequence, and whatever wisdom and advice she gave you, you sure as hell better have been paying attention. And just like taking notes in class, yes, a lot of it will be on your test. Because now life is different. Not bad, but different. And one of the biggest lessons I had to learn was that the world doesn't stop spinning just because you lose someone you love. People are still going to be themselves. They may tip their heads to the side and pout their lips when you tell them that you lost your mother, but that's pretty much the extent of some of their sympathy. Some people won't even care at all because they've lost so much more than I have. So what if I have to put flowers on 6 graves when I go to the cemetery? 6 relatives that all lost their lives to some form of cancer. So what if my life isn't fair? That's really not the point. The point never was for life to be fair. The point was that even though life can be unfair sometimes, the world is still going to spin. And since it's still spinning and life is still going on, what am I going to choose to do with the one that I still have? So after crying, being angry, and shutting myself off from the world for a few months, I finally decided that enough was enough. The first thing I did afterwards was create and publish my very own website. I made a lot more designs and opened up a couple more e-commerce shops. I started offering paid virtual resume workshops. But most importantly, I started to write again, which was a shocker because my writing is very contingent. Being an empath, I don't always feel like outwardly expressing myself because I'm just too busy absorbing everything around me and feeling emotions deeply. I remember back in my 20s, I had actually stopped writing for almost 8 years. It's when I first got diagnosed with walking depression and I just wasn't motivated or passionate enough to do it anymore. This year, I thought I might have come close to letting it all go again, but somehow I didn't. The world never stops spinning and a writer never stops gaining inspiration. And so with this book, I wanted to continue where my last book of short stories left off. Some of the stories in this book are actually part 2s of the stories I had written in volume 1. As a writer, I'm always curious about the characters I create in that little made-up world in my head. I wonder how they're doing now and that time has passed. What new adventures would they be embarking on? Did anything change in their worlds now that things have drastically changed in mine? Because the world hadn't stopped spinning for me, so why should it stop spinning for them? I'm still tampering with the concept of gray writing. I still don't believe that people can be categorized as being good and not bad, either one thing and not the other. Nothing is simply black or white. We all live in this gray area. And over the course of our lives, we teeter on being both protagonists and antagonists in our own and other people's stories. Of course, I try exploring that concept some more with new and familiar characters. In addition, after rereading all these stories, I began to notice something else besides just gray characters. I actually started to notice the contrast in my own writing and that it too was teeter-tottering in places. See, I started writing many of these stories back before my mother had passed. The other stories were written after she actually did. So for me, it was striking how different some plots and characters were from each other. Some characters just seemed more malicious and blunt than I'm used to writing. Now I understand that they were just products of my current moods and realities. So you might notice characters like Dante Cunningham and Eli Braxton LaCroix are on two ends of the same spectrum. But I'm actually glad they both exist, because just like in real life, all sorts of people coincide in this world. Everyone's experiences are their own, and in the end, we're all a little gray, just trying to cope with our lives as deemed fit. So now, I'm forced to be an adult without my mother's presence. I learned that I actually love and appreciate her even more. With her, I had wings. Without her, I have wings, and I'm starting to gain some traction and propel off the ground. Maybe not as quick or as high as I would like just yet, but just wait and see. My mother had left me with so much. She had already grasped the concept that in life, things are going to get pretty gray. But she never allowed it to clip her wings in the process. So maybe just like the characters in this book, I have to learn to keep on living too. And to cope as best as I possibly can. That people do not change, not unless they truly want to. And through it all, the world just keeps on spinning. Because even when it hurts, the show must go on. And so does life. So will you allow me to tell you some stories instead? Again. T.A. Suyt, November 2021.